Good morning. John Adamson, the Rehab and Documentation Guru. Thought I'd talk about a subject called burnout and stress in the caregiver world and anxiety. Anyway, they're all kind of related. So this morning, I got going early because I brought my daughter to her nursing class skills checkoff. She's in her very first semester focused just on nursing. She has done all the other stuff, the prerequisite stuff for college, and then she's in now the nursing program specifically. Everything going forward is just going to be nursing classes, which is kind of different from what I had in PT school. We had a little bit more of a mix of non PT stuff with PT stuff, but anyway, that's just the way our program works, and it's good. But last week, she has hardly gotten any sleep. I've driven her to her 1 day a week clinical. What do they call it? They don't call it clinical. But anyway, it's the same thing. And I've driven her because she's hardly slept. She is just like a walking zombie stress case. She's a 4.0 student, and she got her first nursing, like foundations of nursing class test. She did great, but she's hardly been able to sleep. She's nauseous feeling. She's stressing out over the workload, which is really high. I'm convinced that they are trying to kill the nursing students first semester to see who actually survives, and then hopefully things will settle down a little bit. And she's just really, really stressed out. And so, anyway, another not great night of sleep, lots of anxiety, feeling poorly, and I drove her to her skills lab, which is 6 hours. My gosh. I can only imagine the stress involved with that. So it got me thinking about this whole burnout, stress, anxiety that a lot of healthcare workers are facing right now, including PTs, OTs, and speech therapists. When I graduated in 91, things were pretty chill before PPS, and we had it easy. We didn't think we had it easy. I remember I worked in a rehab hospital where we had, if you had 2.5 patients, meaning two patients with BID treatments and then one patient with a QD treatment, that was considered an average caseload. Can you imagine? I mean, some of you are probably like going, wow, cannot imagine having that light a caseload. But for us, that was considered a full caseload. Or, no, I'm sorry, it was 3 BIDs and one single treatment. Still, that's nothing. And the BIDs were like 45 minutes each. So you do the math. That's not much treatment time. We would complain if we went higher than that. It's just ridiculous. So anyway, things have gotten so much worse. When PPS hit back in the late 90s, stress immediately went up. I remember being in that situation and how it impacted not only myself but the people I worked with. But then we got used to it. And of course we had things like if you were in an inpatient setting, you had grouping. You used grouping extensively. And grouping, like especially on some days, allowed you significant time for performance of your documentation. And there was other things that we did, but it made it possible to work an 8-hour day and not work off the clock and get our documentation done. But in the last few years, things have really changed for the healthcare worker. And I know that some of you that watch this channel are working like multiple PRN jobs. And how do you deal with that? I mean, trying to juggle all that just to make ends meet. And it just got me thinking about burnout. Like, I'm hoping my daughter doesn't burn out early from her nursing school, because it is stressful, and nursing, depending on what setting you're in, is a hard job. And we as rehab professionals pick on nursing once in a while, depending on what setting you're in, because obviously there are there are definitely differences in the standard of care, but I've been generally always impressed with inpatient, like acute care nurses or home health. I work with some really great nurses. Um, it can be different in other settings, though. But I want to talk about burnout. What is burnout? Here's a definition from NIH, the National Institutes of Health. Burnout is a combination of exhaustion, cynicism. Aren't we all a little cynical right now? And perceived inefficiency resulting from long term job stress. Does it sound like you? Uh, you know, so some of us belong to a Facebook group called Geriatric OTPT and Speech. I think I have that mixed up. Large Facebook group. Lots of rehab professionals on there, tens of thousands. And it's evident from the comments and the posts from people. They're under a lot of stress. And they're feeling it, and they're cynical. And they're feeling burnt out. And what happens, and this is a study I'm looking at. You might want to check this out. It's from a few years ago. It's called Burnout in United States Healthcare Professionals, a Narrative Review. And of course, who do they focus on? Physicians and nurses, because rehab burnout's just not there apparently. But anyway, it just goes into, what is burnout and what their findings are. And sometimes burnout manifests in ways you don't even realize it. Like my daughter, I'll ask her, "Are you stressed?" And she'll say, or anxious, and she'll say, "I don't think so." But I mean, it's clear she is. It's clear. When we talk about things like depression, I don't think she's depressed, but people can be depressed without knowing it. They can have depression symptoms without realizing it. And you have to realize there are manifestations that you might not be realizing. Like I think about being cynical. Like you might not realize that you're under a lot of stress, but you might notice that your level of sarcasm is going up and your cynicism. You used to be the glass half full person, and now you're the glass half empty. And I think I've become like that as I've gotten older. I've become definitely more cynical. Uh, and how do you deal with that? Well, I would just encourage you. Obviously, there's some tried and true methods for dealing with this. I mean, you can look online and you can see there's a ton of stuff on healthcare worker burnout. That's what I put in Google, and like there's like this first one that came out was an ad. Then the burnout in the United States healthcare I talked about. I mean, there's so much stuff about dealing with burnout, especially since COVID. But we are dealing obviously with changes in Medicare payment that have really influenced us in rehab. You got to deal with it because it's not only is it going to influence negatively your ability to provide care, but it obviously will carry over into other aspects of your life. So what can you do realistically? Number one, I think realistically we need to look at reducing our expenditures significantly, dramatically, in whatever way you can. You got to remember that life, when you get done with your life or you're towards the tail end of your life, you're not going to look back and be thankful that you bought that BMW. You're going to be thankful for the opportunities and that you've had, the loved ones that you've enjoyed, the trips that you've taken, the quality time spent. That's what you're going to be really happy about. And one of the things I think I see a lot of rehab professionals will complain. I mean, I've known some of these people will complain about expenditures, and they'll have like a brand new car, or they'll buy the 4,000 square foot McMansion. Uh, and so they're stressing themselves out partly by just spending exorbitant amounts of money. And so one way to reduce stress is to have less stress on the financial aspect. And so cut back financially. Now I have stress partly because I have 12 children, and trust me, I don't have a new car. You see this baby? missing headliner. See that? 1999 Toyota Avalon with 240, almost 247,000 miles on it. This is not a Lexus, but it's reliable and it gets me where I'm going. And I have everything I've put into it has been cash, and that helps us keep relatively afloat. This has been a hard year for the Adamson household too. So one way you can reduce your stress, which will reduce some of your burnout, is you got to look hard at your finances. Number two, you got to look hard at your own health. We're healthcare professionals, and in rehab, you would think we would be the most mindful of keeping in good fitness. And obviously, you've all worked with, and I've worked with, and at times I have been in pretty good fitness. I had a job where I biked to work back and forth. And I was really fit at that point. That was when I was about 40, working in Rapid City, South Dakota. All year long, I'd bike back and forth to work. Yes, in South Dakota. And I was in good shape. And we've got to take the time to exercise because studies have shown clearly, this, that one way to deal with stress is to have regular exercise of low to moderate intensity. Even weight training, which is short duration, high intensity, has been shown to reduce stress. And when you are in better physical fitness, it helps you deal more with mental fitness. So you want to reduce your anxiety, make sure you're staying fit. And you might think, well, I just don't have time for that. You got to make the time. You really do. Quality sleep. I don't know about you, but I am addicted to the phone. Obviously, I'm on my phone right now making a video for you. And I will sometimes be looking at it at night, but we know studies have shown blue light impairs your ability to sleep. I do have these, you can kind of tell from the reflection in the camera, but I have blue blocking lenses that helps so that I can shut down. And I don't have any problem generally when I really close my eyes and relax. I generally don't have any problem falling asleep because I'm tired. But you need good quality sleep. That'll help you deal with stress. Also, time for meditation. Now, I am a Christian, and part of my meditation comes from spending time in the Word of God. And however you meditate, whatever you do, spend time where you can just cleanse your mind. One of the things I like, obviously I do home health, is I've got time between patients where I can just kind of chill. And that helps. That does help. Because when I get home, 12 children, it's busy. But you got to have the time to make sure that you're really meditating, spending time. Mindfulness has been the catchword for the last few years now. It helps you deal with anxiety and stress. And even if it's like 10 minutes a day where you just work on deep breathing and saying a mantra to yourself and reading scripture, whatever it might be, whatever you do, you need that time. You've also, back to quality sleep, studies have shown that if you don't get into significant REM sleep, it causes increase in stress hormone production. REM, deep sleep, allows you to process what happened for the day, which will help you deal with anxiety. So what are we up to so far? Oh, let's talk about diet. So I'm advocating for a certain diet lifestyle. You may notice invariably if you watch my videos over time, my face will be skinnier or fuller, and when it's fuller, it generally tends to be kind of rosy. And I'm going back to more of the skinny, although it's hard to tell with the beard, skinny time, because I've gotten back to what's called intermittent fasting and a ketogenic diet. Now, it's not for everybody. What I am doing is a lifestyle change because of previous pre-diabetic issues and massive health issues a number of years back. And I went keto. I dropped to my college weight. Then I allowed my weight to go back up. And really, this season with COVID and not going to the gym, it's ballooned back up. And now I'm in the process of losing again. You got to eat well. Studies have shown that, being obese is mostly related to how you eat, and what kind of stuff you put in your mouth. You can exercise as much as you want. And yeah, there's a certain point where if you do enough exercise, you will, because of the calorie burn, be able to eat about what you want. But let's face it, none of us have the time to just have endless exercise. And so diet is most important. And so look into that. Look into things like anti-inflammatory diets. Look into ketogenic, intermittent fasting. Some of you might be, I don't know, vegetarians. And there's a way to eat vegetarian. I used to be a vegan vegetarian. And I was extremely strict. And unfortunately, I got really unhealthy from that. Some of you might be able to make it work. And I was really good. I was like trying to make sure I had my macros and vitamins, and still I ended up really struggling with that. So anyway, make sure that you take good care of your diet. Stay away from the junk, and that will help with your stress and anxiety. And then finally, I guess I would say relationships. I can't help it. I've got 13 interactions in my family, my wife and my 12 children, and there's invariably going to be some drain associated with some of those relationships. And we've adopted, and you deal with some of the issues that your adopted kids have, and that can be kind of a drain. And a lot of people have said get the toxic people out of your life, and sometimes you work with toxic people. And I wouldn't totally advocate for getting rid of toxic people. I, as a Christian, don't believe that's biblical, but you do need breaks from toxic people. People that bring you down, you need breaks from them, because if you spend a bunch of time with a bunch of nagging pessimists, it's just going to make you a nagging pessimist too, and that's just going to increase your stress. So anyway, this is a longer video. If you've watched it, thank you for watching all of me just kind of rambling on about this. But caregiver burnout is a big deal, and I see it evidenced in so many posts by different rehab professionals going on right now. And hopefully, I've offered a few helpful, specific suggestions that you may have already thought about, but you haven't put into practice, and you just need to hear somebody reiterate it. Check it out. Check it out on Google. Just look up caregiver burnout. You may have it, and you just don't know it because you're manifesting signs, kind of like my daughter, who I think is in a little bit of denial that she's in high anxiety right now from nursing school. Make sure that you take care of yourself, because only then will you be a good rehab professional and take care of your patients. Anyway, John Adamson, the Rehab and Documentation Guru. Take care, and God bless.